Aloha, buddies. Concert buddy. This episode you're about to put eyes and ears on is one I've been looking forward to sharing for some time. I was fortunate to have the opportunity recently to sit down with the one and only Robert Fithen. If you're on YouTube in the vinyl community, I'm sure you're familiar with Robert's content. He is hands down one of the best channels to watch out there. And the guy is a musical savant. He knows so much about music, which we'll get into in a second. But the real reason we got together, the Mega Powers, got together was to talk about trolling. And if you have a social media presence, a YouTube channel, Twitter, what have you, you're well versed in trolling and people coming at you and just being negative. So I talked to Robert about this weird phenomenon that we're kind of inundated with of late. Robert actually works in broadcasting and radio, and he actually was part of a focus group talking about trolling and actually found some real trolls, if you can believe that. So we get into it in the conversation, but it's a really kind of a really good back and forth talking about what is the motivation for people to just be so ornery and mean.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
But anyway, hope you guys enjoy this episode. I'll have all kinds of contact information available in the episode, in the comments, all that good stuff. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and let's get into it now.
Buddies, hey, it's Concert Buddy. I'm joined by one of one, Robert Fithen. There's nobody like you on YouTube, my friend. That's true.
Thanks, I think.
Well, I appreciate you joining me. The topic at hand, and we'll get into it in a little bit, is trolls, and it can go a lot of different directions, but the primary focus is I have a YouTube channel, Robert has a YouTube channel, but this is not only applicable to those things, but just people in general, the keyboard gangsters and the people who just want to share their misery with you. But
yes,
we'll lean into that here in a little bit, but kind of kick it off. I've been doing YouTube for a year, but you've been doing it 3 years.
About 3 years.
About 3 years. And I think last time we talked, I think COVID fog or something got me. It just feels like you've been doing it longer because I have a lot more videos, and some of your videos are massive. Well, I wouldn't say successes, but maybe you would call them successes. I mean, the first video I saw of yours was top 10 records, I guess by price according to Discogs.
Right. Yeah. For whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm will just pick certain ones and just, I guess, put them on people's suggested videos. And that was the first one that happened to.
Yeah, it was like a rocket ship. That's the first one I saw. And then I think I did a little homework beforehand. I think it's 386,000.
Yeah,
views.
And the
wild.
Weird thing about that is that's one of my least favorite videos because that really doesn't... that's really not who I am. I'm not somebody who's like, look at all the expensive collectible records I have. I mean, if you look at any of my other videos, that never is brought up. And the only reason I did that one, and it was like maybe the third or fourth video I ever did with the vinyl community, I just did it because I was just getting my feet wet. I was trying to figure out what to do. And I saw that everybody else had done that. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll do this too. And that was it. But I am not the kind that has all kinds of expensive, rare... I mean, I have a few, obviously, but that's like my least favorite video. And, of course, that's the one that YouTube picks to throw out at everybody. And they probably see that and go, yeah, this is a jerk that just wants to talk about how collectible his records are. Okay, that's the last video I'm watching of him. So, yeah, that's... Right.
Well, maybe there's some truth in that, but I think... So right now, your sub count's like 10,000. So clearly... Yeah. Whatever you're doing, there's people that want to watch it or want to watch that video and kind of log in. I'll never forget, and I won't name the channel, but it's a channel that really tries hard at this thing. And I remember, and again, I'm not going to name them, but they were kind of pontificating, why can't I get traction? Why can't I get more subs? And they referenced your video and just shooting from the hip, and because they put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into the production value. And they're like, look at this guy, he's just doing a top 10 list, and it's got whatever it was at the time. So I thought it really cracked me up because I'm like, how you do it, how I do it, that's kind of the way I want to do it.
And I think I know what channel you're talking about too, because I saw that a long time after it happened, and I'm like, what an awful thing to do, because that guy, if it's the same one, has a lot of subscribers and is a big channel and was targeting me, this little guy that just started with like 4 videos. It's like, really?
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, I never responded to that or any. I just was like, yeah, I'm not even going to bother with that. But yeah,
only can happen in reverse, just like that, right?
Right.
Crazy. Well, obviously, if you're watching the video portion of this, you'll see that Robert has an arsenal of music options: vinyl, CDs, probably some tapes. I know it's a jukebox right behind you, right?
Yeah, it is a 45 jukebox.
That's awesome. How did you start collecting? Was it like from Jump Street, and that's everything you've had over your life, or is it through your career in broadcasting that you've accumulated a lot of this stuff? Like what was your specific journey?
No, I was a weird little kid. So right from the get-go, and I'm talking like 2 or 3 years old, with like a close and play record player. I was the little kid. I did not want action figures. I didn't want baseball mitts. I wanted records from like literally 2-3 years old. I couldn't even read the labels, but I knew what records they were, based on the design of the label. And my mother used to tell that story to people he couldn't read, but he could tell you what record that was. And had my close and play. I mean, I remember when I got my first stereo when I was 7 years old, and all I wanted was records and tapes. And it was the strangest. I mean, looking back, it was kind of, but I mean, I didn't care about video games. I didn't care about any of that. Records and tapes since I've been like 2 years old. And so I did what most people did. It starts out pre-CD era, because we're talking the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and had a bunch of records and tapes. And then when CDs came along, did the thing everybody does, trade your records in, get CDs. But I never got rid of a title. So I always made sure that, and still this is the case. I've never actually got rid of Bryan Adams' Reckless and just got rid of it. It would be, I got rid of Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album after I got the CD. So
you always had one static in your collection regardless.
Right, no matter what it was. So a lot of my records, before maybe I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, have been missing the biggest titles, because they were all on CD. And so now for the last 5, 6, 7, or maybe a little more like 7 or 8 years, that's what I've been trying to get the bigger titles back into my record collection and not getting rid of the CDs, because I know as soon as I start getting rid of CDs, here comes the CD renaissance, here comes the CD community on YouTube, and so yeah.
So
only one, shame on me, right? Yeah, I have 8 tracks, because they were, you just push them into the player. Great for a 4-year-old, none of this putting a needle on stuff and fingerprints, shove them right in. And so, yeah, I used to take apart 8 tracks and fix them when I was 6. I somehow figured out the technology of the 4 stereo tracks, and knew they had to all be the same. Understood that the foil thing went by and changed the... It was very strange. I was a very strange child.
You found your musical calling very early.
Yeah, I wish I would have concentrated more on maybe, I don't know, playing guitar or something instead of just playing records. I did play the clarinet for a while in band, but that's about it.
Did in your school, did they have those goofy recorders? Those pieces of plastic. It was like a $2 flute. That's what they indoctrinated. Yeah. So coming up, I grew up in the country. And when we had elementary music and they're introducing you to instruments and stuff, the first thing they give you is this little plastic flute called a recorder. And they're doing Mary Had a Little Lamb and all that stuff. I don't know if I was traumatized or if I was really just jealous, because all the kids with money bought the recorder directly. I had to get the second hand. Everyone's mouth had been on it.
Oh wow! Yeah,
end of the school year, I got a 50-cent piece. But anyway, sorry.
I always know that. I always remember that the class structure, I always say, it started in kindergarten with the kids who had the 16 Crayola box, the 32 Crayola box, and then the 64 one with the sharpener on the back. They start right away with, these kids have the money, these kids don't.
That's true. Yeah.
These kids over here don't even have Crayola. They have the the plain label crayons.
Dollar Tree brand. Yeah.
Right. But no, we just sang, I think, in music class. I don't think we had any instruments. The teacher would play the piano, but that'd be it.
So with all that music and this being drawn to music at an early age, do you have a particular lane you're drawn to more than others, like classic rock or I don't know, psych or any of that kind of stuff? Or are you just like an equal opportunity consumer?
Just pretty equal as far as different types of rock and soul music, especially stuff from the last century. What I'm trying to do now is trying to move my stuff up more to like this century. You know, I still consider something from 2010 to be newer, even though it's like 13 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, just listening to for the last, I don't know, 40 something years, listening to the 70s stuff and the 80s and whatever. It's a nice nostalgia, kind of escapism nostalgia back to a more innocent time in my life,
Sure.
I guess. And then the 90s stuff growing up and first getting into radio and all of that. So I need to start exploring more of stuff from today. But yeah, that's usually what I'm doing is the 70s and 80s. But that's all over I mean, everything from country, dollar records that nobody else wants, and I know all the album tracks, to disco, to funk, to rock, to psychedelic, and it's just all over the map.
How do you feel about live music? I know in a recent video, not to spoil for the audience, but I think now you're not really inclined to, it takes a lot of effort to get you to a live show, but was that always the case, or like when did you first go to like your first concert?
First concert wasn't until I was out of high school.
Really?
And so yeah, I didn't really. It was I think Neil Young, first rock concert. I mean, I went with brothers and sister and her husband to like Six Flags to see Oak Ridge Boys,
Right.
And stuff like that. But I mean,
Sure.
and my first rock concert was I think Neil Young, and that was like the Harvest Moon thing, like 2 years out of high school. So. But I went to so many free concerts being in radio that I just got really... I mean, I was going to a concert a week for like 8 years. And so I got really burnt out on it because... And especially when you're behind the scenes and you realize what's really going on, and it's the same damn thing, And so, like you said, the pandemic hit, and then it's like, I don't really miss this. I don't really miss stadiums and big overdone... things. I did do a video about some of my favorite concert experiences, and it turns out a lot of it was backstage stuff and that kind of thing. As far I'm much more into produced music. I love the way, like I was saying, that something that sounded like this in 1975 sounds exactly the same today. It's been crystallized, a piece of history. Not updated, not changed, not remixed. That's why I'm not really into the Beatles remixes and all that kind of stuff. I love that the exact sound that I'm hearing is the same exact sound that somebody's hearing in Ireland or Ukraine or just all over the world. No matter if it was today, 5 years ago, 45 years ago, it's the exact same experience. That's one of my fascinations with music that I kind of developed later on. So, but yeah, live music these days. I would be much happier just walking down Beale Street, walking into a blues bar, and just whoever's there. I'm much more into that than, okay, St. Louis, are you ready to rock?
Right,
it's our big hit.
Right.
Time to go to the bathroom. We're going to do one off the new album.
Yeah, no, I hear it. No,
and so many people are past their prime now too. It's like, man, come on.
Well, yeah, not to spill the tea, right? But they did those Taylor Hawkins shows, a few months ago, and I think the LA one had Joe Elliott from Def Leppard singing with Miley Cyrus. To your point, and Def Leppard, big band, great career, but man, like, bro, gotta hang it up. The voice is like, the voice is gone, and that's okay. You had your time, but it's hard to watch these guys. You just can't let it go. It's kind of a shame, but.
And in the old days, you lasted 20 years and you were done. I mean, Miley Cyrus would be on her way out now if this was 40 years ago. I mean, you had your 10 or 15 year thing, and then it was the next generation coming up. Nobody went and saw Chubby Checker in the 70s. Nobody went and saw... there were a few people, but I remember when the Rolling Stones were playing in 1981, and people were like... how long are these guys going to be able to pull off this whole rock star thing? And that was 1981. So it's like, man, I don't want to ruin my old memories either with a bunch of,
No, I agree. Especially these legacy acts. Like I think it was last year, like Motley Crue was touring, and they had that big pomp and circumstance of we're never touring again. They signed the contract in blood, then a couple years later, they rip it up, and Vince Neil is out there trying not to have a heart attack, and it's rough.
Yeah.
It's bad news. But to put a bow on it, yeah, I think it's as I'm getting older, that's what I could identify with not wanting to go to concerts. I used to love going to concerts, loved it. In college, I'd be at like Mississippi Nights all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But now, and even with COVID, like not having live music, not having live music available really stunk. Like my wife and I were walking one night, and I don't know why I'm going off on the story, but we were walking one night, and our neighbor was playing some like music, and this is a guy in his backyard just jamming, right? And it was like a terrible Beatles cover, but it sounded so good because we had not heard live music. But then once everything started opening back up, and I started going to concerts, I'm like, man, it's a Tuesday night. Do I really want to, is it really worth the squeeze? I still like live music, but I don't know. Something's changed maybe within me, or maybe as I'm getting older, it's just not the same as it used to be. But
yeah,
just my experience. All right. So task at hand, going back to the kickoff, trolls. And we talked kind of a couple times about this, and you have some data from your broadcasting world that you're going to bring to the conversation. But I think if anyone's done anything online, be it YouTube, Twitter, anywhere, it's unavoidable now. Now that it seems like the confluence of people is just everyone's online, and there's always seems to be this subset of people disenfranchised in their own mind, prisoners of the moment, all these kind of things that are just so overtly negative. And I don't know why I thought, I started doing the YouTube thing a year ago, and I don't know why I was naive. I saw it in the comment section all the time, but I'm like, I'll start a channel, and I just want to be positive and engage with the community, and find other people who are similar music tastes and backgrounds and collectors and all that. And then when I got that first troll, it was a slap right in the face, because I'm like, wow, I didn't even do it. And I'll get into that story in a little bit, but obviously having a channel for 3 years, channel specific. How has the troll situation been for you? I'm sure there's got to be people clapping at you all the time.
Yeah, because of the the way that I present my channel, and I'm kind of sarcastic, and I have some really strong opinions, and I try to have fun with it. I try to bring humor to it, and there's a lot of people who appreciate that and kind of get it for what it is. I mean, I'm not dishonest. I'm not like a shock jock or something like that that's just out there trying to be shocking and I can't stand that stuff. I had to work with those kind of people.
That shtick, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a shtick person. This is how I am in real life. I just it just kind of comes through on video. But I have had like running jokes about how overrated like Pet Sounds and Steely Dan Asia and all that is. And there are people who get it. I mean, I watch a channel called As It Should Be. It's like one of my favorite channels where the three people get together, and each week they're just breaking down a year, talking about their favorite and least favorite songs from that year. And they rip apart some of my favorite songs, but I certainly would never go on there. I have fun with it. I certainly would never go on there and troll them. And I heard you talking very briefly on one of your interview videos about trolls, and I just thought that I'm kind of in a unique position because of my work. We had an instance there for a month or so where I was a part of this whole, I guess you could call it focus group type thing about internet trolls, not specifically vinyl community, obviously, but just internet trolls, because we have a big social media presence. Radio stations usually do, and we were in there with a few other people that have the big internet presence. And how do you deal with trolls? And there were actual trolls or former trolls that were being interviewed and telling you about their lives and why they would do it and all this kind of stuff. And it was really kind of eye-opening. Some of the main takeaways I had was that, I think a lot of us are on the internet, vinyl community specifically, for the same reason. We're all looking for a connection. We're all looking, sure. I mean, I am. This is why I do this. I don't do this, to try to be a celebrity or anything, and I'm not selling t-shirts or whatever. I'm just here to make connections, and it's been great getting to know people from all over the world. Sure. It's what I've always kind of wanted to, I love it. I didn't know there was, I knew there were, but it's so great to get involved with people who are just like I am, and have had this big long obsession with music and all of that, and records specifically and all that. But I found out that kind of trolls are the same way. They're looking for a connection. They're looking for feedback. They're looking for discourse. But they, for whatever reason, don't feel that they have anything positive to bring. They feel like they're not interesting enough, or they don't have the time to be interesting or to do interesting things. So they're just going to go for the negative. And when I say trolls, I'm not talking about people that are giving you constructive criticism or correcting you when you said something wrong. I'm all about being corrected. I said the Durruti column, and it's the Durruti or vice versa or whatever.
But it's going to happen. I mean, it's people make mistakes. Like, give some people some grace. It's crazy.
And I love the fact that you're, now I know. Thanks for correcting me. Because I mean, growing up pre-internet, if you're a huge music fan, you're probably reading a lot about it, and you never actually hear the name of the group or the or the city they're from. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but then that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are just, it seems
hell bent on.
Right, they're miserable. They want to make you miserable too, and that's kind of the message that I wanted to get out there. Is that, like you just said, you got slapped in the face with your first troll. You're like, what did I do? You didn't do anything, because it's all about the troll. It's not anything about the person getting trolled. And I get it that my particular channel invites an aggressive feedback sometimes, but I've seen comments on people's channels, and they're just basically talking about the new records they bought or whatever. They're not being like sarcastic or like rude or whatever, and just getting trolled up and down, and it's just ridiculous. So yeah, that's my thing I to pass along to people is you don't have to deal with, just click and delete. It's really simple. You don't have to involve yourself in that, because that's what they want. Unless that's what you want. If you want to duke it out with some random person that's just wanting, go right ahead. But
I don't know if it was, maybe it's generationally, maybe it's just manners, maybe it's upbringing. But it's that old adage: if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Like, there's plenty of times I've seen videos, heard things, what have you. I go to the movies, and movies are straight trash. I didn't rush back home and try to find out Martin Scorsese's phone number to call him. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
there's never been something inside of me that's just been so fired up that I just have to let you know how I vehemently disagreed with whatever you were doing. And I don't know if it's human nature. I mean, it's everywhere. I
don't have a problem with, like I said, my channel, I'm doing a lot of critique. Like my last channel, one of my latest videos is 10 albums that really disappointed me. And it's another one of those that YouTube has picked up and blown up. So I think people enjoy me being negative about music more than they enjoy me being positive. So I feel like this responsibility to almost be like the, what's his name? Black. The guy's last name is Black.
Lewis Black?
Yeah, the Lewis Black of the vinyl community, I was called one time, which is not who I really want to be. But I mean, if people enjoy that, great. I enjoy doing it. But I'm talking about people like that will just, for instance, this wasn't on my own channel, so there was nothing I could do about it. But there's a guy named Andrew who has a channel called Parallelogram Auctions, and he's all about the Beatles. And this guy is a Beatles expert, and I love his channel where he does the different pressings and all over the world Beatles stuff. And he had brought up Rubber Soul and the Beatles album, and he was talking about how this is the first time sitars had been used on a Beatles album. And I've got a quirky little fact that goes with that I just thought of myself. I didn't read it anywhere, and so I thought I'd share it in the comments section. I'm like, well, because he's in the UK. And I said, well, actually, American fans were probably less kind of jolted by the sound of sitars on Rubber Soul because we were introduced to sitars on a Beatles album on the Help soundtrack. Because in the U.S., instead of having 14 Beatles songs, it has 8 Beatles songs, and then a bunch of instrumentals from the movie done by a guy named Ken Thorpe, I think. Ken Thorne or something like that. And they all have sitars on them. As a matter of fact, the album actually starts before the song Help even comes on with this short little intro. The very first thing you hear is a bunch of sitars going, ding, 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 and then like a James Bond type of thing. And I said, so it probably prepared American fans a little more for what they would hear in Rubber Soul, because we actually got sitars on a Beatles album before that. Oh my God. The replies to that, you would have think I was talking about clubbing a seal or something. I mean, people just... Fact. Rubber Soul was the first Beatles album with sitars on it. Fact. It's like, that's not a fact, dude. I just explained that. And people that don't know the difference between an opinion and a fact, there's that whole thing. And so it went on and on and on and on. And finally this one guy goes, well, that's just your opinion, dude. And your opinion sucks. And I'm just like... I actually responded to that one, and I said, actually, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. It's not my opinion that there's sitars on the U.S. Help album. It's a fact. And the guy responded, it's also a fact that your mom's a whore, but we don't have to talk about that either, do we? It's like, that's the kind of troll I'm talking about. because I brought up a quirky, silly fact about,
Sure.
you know, if my mother's a whore. You know, I mean, that kind of stuff. I never will forget my very first troll. I don't remember what video it was, but I had talked about how I have a lot of David Bowie CDs, but there's, you know, David Bowie's got a lot of releases, so there's obviously holes in the collection. And I'm kind of torn between whether I want to get, because I'm buying records now, whether I want to buy records of the David Bowie albums I don't have, which may not be as good, or I want to maybe, you know, get some of the CDs I have on record to have the actual record and everything. You know, but hey, David Bowie, you know, if you're going to buy original pressings, that can get expensive.
Sure.
And somebody put, well, maybe you'd have a little more money to buy David Bowie albums if you didn't blow it all on hair plugs. And I'm like,
what? Oh, wow.
You know, no offense to anybody that has hair plugs
Right,
or toupees
right, but come
or weaves.
on.
If you do you, if that's what makes you feel confident, fine. But I don't have hair plugs and I don't have a toupee. I don't dye my hair. This is my real hair. It's one of those weird things. I'm old, but, you know, for whatever reason, my hair hasn't gone gray yet. It's probably because I don't have kids. But, you know, yeah, that's my real hair. So I just put back, yeah, I don't have hair plugs, man. That's my real hair. And it just arguing back and forth. Oh, yeah, well, the lack of hair on your neck suggests otherwise. I'm like, okay. So now we got people zooming in on my neck and counting the hairs.
They're looking for moles, and they're going to say, "Yeah,
right."
yeah,
And it was right after that the troll thing happened at work. You know, where we're doing the thing, and I'm just like, okay, so this guy's just out looking for, you know, tell. And then I've seen other people that have trolled me, and then I go to, like I said, I go to other people's videos, and they're in the comments of their video doing the same thing, twisting around things they've said just so they can argue. And just, you know, trolling. And they didn't even watch the video. They just looked at the thumbnail and decided to leave comments. Those are my favorites. The ones that don't even bother watching the video. But just, I put up a trap one time, almost. I guess you could almost a trap. I mean, it's a real video, but I made a video called, you know, album covers that true, or what was it? Album something. Maybe it was album covers that are truly offensive to me. And if you watch the video, I'm basically talking about the bastardization of album covers from record companies, like when they'll change the cover or they'll put misleading information on it. Like, for instance, the Ozzy Osbourne was the first one I mentioned, Ozzy Osbourne Blizzard of Oz, where on the back of the CD, it makes out like it's the classic 1981 album and blah, blah, blah. And you play it, and it's not. The drum and bass have been replaced. They've taken out the original drum and bass parts and replace them. This is all a Sharon Osbourne thing. Not a big fan of hers. And that's what's offensive. It's nothing like an upside down pentagram or naked people or whatever. And those are the things that offend me on album covers. When the CDs were coming out, MCA was really bad at this, and you'd get the back cover, the front cover, and you'd open it up and they would be blank on the inside. You just paid, you know, $18 for this, and they can't even bother to put the gatefold artwork in there or any kind of text or what, stuff like that. Artwork that mentions nothing about the fact that these are re-recordings and not the original versions that you want. Stuff like that was what the whole video was about. And I got so many comments about, well, pussy, if you're so offended, you shouldn't buy it then. But it's like, that's totally not what the video's about. You didn't even watch it. You are commenting based on a thumbnail. Do you just drive by restaurants and smell the food and start going on Yelp talking about how you hate the restaurant? Do you critique movies based on the trailer? It's like, so yeah, there's all types. But
well, it's funny you mentioned Yelp, because I think that's honestly, there's a lot of variables to this, right? But I think media thing, everyone look at me, I have an opinion and it matters. But like Yelp is just as guilty of this, because it gave everyone a forum to, and reward you to either praise, take a shit on a restaurant, what have you. And then if you did it enough, you became a super Yelper. I forget what the term is now.
Yeah.
So you were rewarded for such clandestine behavior that it's wild. But going back to that focus group you're involved with, so you said that there were some self-professed trolls involved. Which I think is fascinating. That people were just like, yeah, I troll. I mean, what kind of feedback did they say? Like, what was their call to action? Like, what motivated them to?
They were former trolls. And
they were
they were being very honest. They were like, the one woman was like, I had lost my job, so I didn't have anything to do. I was mad at the world, and so I just sat around all day, and I wanted to make other people upset. I was miserable. I wanted to make other people miserable, and I didn't even believe 85% of what I was doing, I just wanted to upset people. And the better I saw, the material was, the better the person was, the better their presentation or whatever was, the worse I trolled them. Because if they were up this high, that was just that much more. I wanted to knock them down to, the level of misery that I was on. And it's just like, when you hear something like that coming right out of somebody's mouth, right there, in the room, and then you see go home and you see it on your own and it's like, okay, well, I'm not wasting my time with this. Click, done. There are people that will say, that will get into arguments thinking that they can win an argument. It's like, when you've given that energy to that's all they're looking for. They're just looking for your energy. You're not going to
suck the energy out of you.
I got them. I used to, comment back on some of them just for the benefit of other people reading the comments. So they'd think they were funny. But I don't even do that anymore. Now I'm just, like you said, I've got like all these subscribers. So I'm just focused now on people that actually have something real to say. And, I'll try to make a connection back and forth with them. But the troll people that are just like, I'm upset because of whatever, and today's your day, or this 15 minutes is yours, so I'm just gonna type and your mother's a whore.
That's terrible. Oh, well,
because I literally gave a fact about a Beatles album. I mean,
you can't win for losing.
But
man.
yeah, and then women too. This is vinyl community specific. That whole thing we had a few years ago.
Sure.
Where there's only a few women that do this, that make videos showing records and whatever, and some guys get so upset because they have all of these subscribers. That's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about that. If you're in a male dominated thing and women come in there and they're pretty and they're pleasant and everything, they're going to get people that subscribe to them just because they won't watch those videos. I mean, making some video calling them whores and all that stuff, that's not going to change anything. And for every kind of like free subscriber they get from that, they've got to put up with a lot of nonsense too. I mean, I used to know women, know women that work in radio, but I used to also know some women that worked in TV, and it's even worse. These female newscasters that, I mean, some of them were so skilled and so top-notch at what they did and whatever. And still, they could put on the best newscast and the best, really knock it out of the park.
Sure.
Go back to their desk, open their email, and it's like, I love the red pumps you were wearing today.
I know.
I noticed you uncrossed your legs when you said Collinsville. Was that a sign for me? So they do, those, as many as those subscribers, they do have to put up with a lot of nonsense, too, that I think a lot of guys don't have to put up with. So I mean, they take the good with the bad, so there's if somebody wants to give them a few free records or something, you don't have to make some video with your little pack of He-Man woman haters. That was going on a few years ago too. It's like, come on.
Yeah, it's nuts. So I've never told this story before, but I figured since we're talking trolls, and it's probably the only time I'm going to say it publicly, but when I started the YouTube, I kind of kicked off with this. I got that first troll, and it was very innocuous. It just kind of, I did a video talking about Record Store Day, and I think it was last Record Store Day in the spring where they had the Taylor Swift 7-inch, right? So my video was just going through the Record Store Day list, and I was just doing a voiceover, and I made a joke about, here's this Taylor Swift 7-inch. There's going to be a lot of young girls there. You're going to have to sharpen those elbows and give you some space digging in the bins. That's it. Bad joke, if anything. I can own up to a bad joke.
Yeah, that's light compared to what I do on my channel.
Well, I know, yeah, right. But that's all it was a throwaway. A gentleman who commented and basically said he was very displeased. I don't want to give him air. But basically it was like, well, your name's Concert Buddy. That doesn't sound like anybody I'd want to deal with. Okay. So I thought maybe my approach is just kill him with kindness and be like, hey, is this a joke? Sorry, it didn't land. I'll do better, right? A video or two later, I don't even remember what it was. It was just, I may have said something wrong. Pronounced something like we were talking about earlier. Same gentleman. Oh, you're the worst, blah, blah, blah. And at this time, this gentleman was using his government name, his real name. So that's why it stuck out. I was like, oh, yeah, this is the guy that clapped at me before. So then another video, it's the same guy, except now I've noticed they've changed their name. So now they're hiding under the cloak of anonymity. And the only reason I know it's the same person is because I'm only getting one person consistently critiquing what I'm doing.
Right.
And so they gave themselves a pseudonym name. And I just didn't get it. It didn't make any sense. So finally, it triggered me. It did. That I got so mad that I clapped back and just, because after a while you're fed up with it. And as soon as I hit send, I was like, oh, I regretted it, because I'm like, it's exactly what I said. I gave energy to that person, and I was like, you know what, this. So I ended up blocking him. I was like, you know what, just need to block it. I talked to my wife, and she's like, block it, be done with it. So I block it, and then I was like, you know what, I don't want to restrict free speech. I want people to feel like they can talk, and even if it's constructive criticism, I've got to leave it out there. So I unblocked this guy. But I guess when you block him, it takes away the comments or whatever. Well, here he comes again. Another video, another comment, how I'm the worst person in the world. So then I was like, you know what, just for my own sanity and for my audience, I'm just going to block this. Because like you said, people can see these exchanges in the comments, right? So I think I'm done with it. Well, what's interesting is that then, I don't know, I was like spinning on it one night. I was like, what is this guy's deal with me? And, what's interesting is, those first couple comments, they would come to like my email. So I had like the receipts of what they said. And that's how I knew this fellow had changed his name. So the abbreviated version of the story is, I was talking to a record store owner friend of mine, and we were kind of talking just generally. And I was telling him this troll story and just kind of matter of factly. And then I was going to go to another shop across town. And I say, hey, I'll be right back. I'm going to, you're busy. I'm going to come back. And I said, I'm going to X store. And my friend got a real weird look on his face. And I went over to that store, and then I came back, and I was like, hey, when I said I was going to that store, is it because it's a competitor? Like, what's going on there? And this isn't my story to tell this piece of it, but basically the other shop I went to had been like trolling and trying to tear down their business and, doing all this online nonsense. And so it really... Yeah,
I'm remembering we're in the same area. Yeah.
Yeah. So you might know what I'm talking about. So the long and the short of it is, I went home and I was really spinning, and they gave me the name of that owner. This in passing, they said the owner's name is X. So I was like, man, that name sounds really familiar. So I went back to my email, and I found out that the guy who was trolling me had the same name, and I'm like, well, hang on a second. So then I started putting all the pieces together. And I'm like, well, I spoke very favorably with my friend's shop in a couple videos and all that stuff. So the long and the short of it is that was who my troll was. I literally Sherlock Holmes it to figure out, and I don't think I did anything. It was just like association with my friend's shop. So I've blocked this person at this point. I made a video, and I just kind of made a joke about, I was kind of inviting it, I'm going to be honest. But I basically said, like, hey, I know not everyone likes these videos, and I have one person in particular doesn't like this video. And I kind of mentioned their little anonymous name under my breath. In that video, this person now has another account, and they were so smart, they called it their anonymous name version 2.0. And they're like, hey, I'm here.
Again, people just looking for a connection, and that they feel like for whatever reason, that's the only way they can get it is with this kind of stuff.
Crazy. So I didn't even mess with it. I just blocked it right away. But like clockwork, so I release my videos on Sundays. By Monday morning, which is this shop owner's day off, by the way, I know this much, I always have one dislike on every single video. Sometimes I have two. Some people generally maybe don't like the content, but like clockwork, and I know it's him, and it's what, hey man,
I've got the same thing. I've got 3, and it's like they come up like one of them is like right when the video is released, like somebody's literally got their notifications on me just so they can give me a thumbs down. It's like, this is the person that has nothing to do but sit there all day and troll people. And it's pitiful. And I had the same kind of thing happen to me one time where this guy had several accounts, and you could just tell it's the same person because they're using the same kind of words and the same, and it's very generic stuff. Like I said, it's not constructive criticism. It's not, oh, you made a mistake about this. It's blatant trolling. And I responded to him once and said, this is the only attention I'm going to give you. And, then didn't give him any more. I would just block or delete the thing or whatever. And then he comes in with a new one and a new one. And what changed my mind most recently, and it was just a month and a half ago, it's how recent this was, about I'm not doing any more responses to trolls, is this guy trolled me on like his 5th account on the night of Christmas Eve.
Oh,
and I'm just like, man, that's sad. That's sad, you know. And I don't know. I'm not really a religious person, but there's that saying, by the grace of God, you know, go on. Any of us can have our lives turned upside down in a heartbeat. You know, some kind of tragedy. I don't know what is going on in this guy's life. I don't know what kind of tragedy happened, or if something happened, or what. But that's when I'm like, policy now is just delete. Or block or whatever. And YouTube, I don't know who designed that block user thing on YouTube, but they're funny, because when you block somebody on YouTube, I found out they don't know that you've blocked them unless they go and sign into another account. And like look up their comment. So they could be typing away for 20 more comments and have no idea that they're the only one that's seeing it. You're not even seeing it. Your viewers aren't seeing it. No one is seeing this but them, and they don't even know. It's like the same thing happens in a chat. Like if you've been blocked from a chat, you don't know it unless you've signed in as somebody else and say, hey, wait a minute, none of my stuff is showing up, because you can still see the comment. And so it's like, man, that's somebody's at master level at YouTube for designing the block user thing like that, where they're out there talking to the wind, you know, probably typing sentence after sentence.
Right.
And it's like, which side would you rather be on? The troll that's sitting there trying to be all clever, typing it, or the guy that goes, drop down, click, delete.
Delete, yeah.
2 clicks, a drop down and a click, and they're done. You know, so, and if you block them, you don't even have to do that. But I just think that's hilarious that they don't even realize. You know, they don't get a notification when they try to leave a comment. They just think that they're leaving all these comments and no one is seeing them, not even you know. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's the ultimate right there. But, yeah, that Christmas Eve thing really just was like, you know, this isn't even fun. This is sad, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep it too long. I know I could talk about this stuff for a long time, but I do want to ask you a couple lightning round questions, and then I'll send you on your way if you don't mind. Going back to collecting, let's get back to the positive. Let's talk about the fun stuff. So you've been collecting your whole life. Like, what was the most rewarding find that it could be CD, record, whatever. Like, what was the thing that you're like, man, I'm so happy I found this eventually?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I could do the most regretful one that
Sure.
my mother used to get a lot of stuff at garage sale. That's how I curated my collection early on as a little kid, was just 45s from a garage sale and albums and whatever. And my mom, it was about the Beatles or whatever. So occasionally she would go, without me or whatever, but she would know that if she saw records in there, is there any Beatles records in there? And the woman one time told her, yeah, there's a couple in there, and showed her what they were. And, there was a Rubber Soul, and I still have it. That's my Rubber Soul. She got me Rubber Soul. And then this other one that it had a real tattered, beat-up cover. It was all ripped apart. And it had a different record in it that wasn't even the Beatles when I got it home. And she gave her that one for free. She's like, oh, yeah, you can just take that for free. I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, maybe he'll want it, whatever. And I got it, and I had it for a little while, but it was all ripped up, and it didn't have the right record in it. So I did something I never really do and just kind of ended up throwing it away. Butcher sleeve.
Oh, no!
So, yeah. And the reason it was all torn up is because somebody had pulled the original off of there and whatever. But I had no idea what it was. And I thought I'll just get this later on in a real, a better condition with an actual record in it. And no.
Oh man, that's painful. That's painful to hear, Robert. That's painful.
Yeah, I think I was probably like 10 when that happened. Only record I've ever thrown away. Never did another throwaway again. Well,
it's quite a legacy. Quite a legacy there. So when it comes to collecting, and maybe you don't fall on either side, what bothers you more, seam splits or corner dings?
I would say probably seam splits, even though I do have a handy way to fix those. It's called Seams Easy.
Those are great,
Those work, but the seam splits, because then it's all, But, I mean, those are easier to repair than corner dings, so I guess. I can't stand cut corners, is what I can't stand.
Yeah.
I don't like those, because it's missing, then you can't do anything to it. And everybody knows it came out of the dollar bin, that kind of thing. Probably a fifth pressing or something.
What would you say is your biggest pet peeve in the hobby? Like, I think I know this because I know you did a video talking about keeping records behind the jackets. Now, maybe you've come around because that video is a few months ago, but is that, or is there another thing that's just like your biggest pet peeve? Like, why are people so hung up on this?
No, I don't think that's a pet peeve, because that's just something other people do. I don't do that. My biggest pet peeve is the pricing, of like I did the whole video on the Memphis antique malls. And
I have it here.
I get it. You price to sell, and the consumer sets the price, and if people are willing to pay, whatever. But I'm talking, like in that video, I'm talking just beat to hell, moldy records you probably wouldn't even want in your house, because you don't want that mold in your house going for $50. They're trying to sell it for $50, and people that don't know what stuff is worth, and they're just ridiculous prices. People on Discogs, people will say, oh, well, people are just looking at the highest price on Discogs and trying to sell records at that. They're selling them higher than the highest price on Discogs. And the highest price on Discogs probably means it was sealed or autographed or, and no, I see the highest price here, I'm going to sell it for $20 more. It's like, no, that's not how... So it wouldn't sell worldwide for that price, but you think in this little shop here that only serves a small area, somebody's going to pay $20 more than the highest price somebody's paid worldwide. Okay, that makes sense. So it's probably that. Because, I've been collecting for so long, I remember the days, and it's frustrating because I would love a time machine for an hour, I remember the days when you could walk in and, buy all kinds of stuff for, $5 and whatever, and that was what was so fun about it. You got all these treasures, and you could find, oh my God, I can't believe I found this. And that's why when you asked your first question, I was like, I don't remember the last time I really, oh my God, I can't believe it, because that doesn't happen anymore, because everybody's on Discogs and everybody's,
it's true. Actually, Memphis video actually inspired this next one. So like a lot of us travel, right? Go to other places. Personally, I think our record scene in Metro St. Louis is actually sneaky good. That's my opinion. I think we have some really good shops here. So I always am envious when I travel and I find another good shop. So in your travels, is there a shop that sticks out? It's like, yeah, that's probably the best out-of-state shop I've been to.
I haven't been to a lot. I used to go all the time. But what I do now is mostly antique malls and stuff. But Goner Records in Memphis is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. And then last one, Robert, we're here. This is the finish line, sir. And I think I know this answer because I think you already touched on it, but I still like the question. Do you prefer an original or a good remastered reissue, like a modern reissue?
An original, I think, because I don't have too many reissues, but I love... everybody has different reasons for collecting records and whatever. And one of mine is I love the history. I love that this record has been in somebody else's collection, or maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different people's collections, or it's from a time. It's not a replica. It's not a reproduction. It's actually a piece of history. And it's not somebody trying to duplicate some kind of thing, and then let's make sure we don't put the UPS or UPC symbol on there because that's too new, and this is the real deal. And I will put up with a couple of pops and whatever. Plus, a lot of the reissues I've got aren't really that incredible sounding. There's some that they're horrible. Like I got an Aerosmith Permanent Vacation and a Black Crow Shake Your Money Maker that are both just terrible sounding.
Yeah, that Black Crow is not good. I've heard that one.
But the original, definitely. It's too bad, they're all so incredibly expensive now and whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, true.
That's probably why I don't get that much into Record Store Day a lot, because I just, I prefer the old used originals.
I'm like you. That's what drew me to the hobby, is exactly what you're talking about is, it's let's say another person's trash is another person's treasure. Not to that extent, but, just finding these things like originals. Like I've always been drawn to the originals. And that's what drew me in to begin with, is taking something that someone discarded or was ready to move on and then giving it new life. And
and I've got that ever since I got my ultrasonic cleaner. It's been like a life-changing thing, because I haven't bought hardly any records in the last year, because I've been going through and systematically cleaning old records, and it really, some of them just really, like you said, just brought them back to life.
That's awesome.
Give them new life, and just so that's been a great find. I would suggest that to anybody that has a bigger record collection of older records that they got at flea markets or whatever, is try to get a nice old, not where I don't have a 4,000, I have a Humming Guru, which is like $400, but yeah,
does a deal. Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Well, Robert, finish line is here. I want to thank you for taking the time. Really enjoyed the conversation. Like I said, I could talk about this troll stuff till the cows come home. But
the big takeaway is just, it's not about you, it's about them, and it's real easy just to go click delete and move on with your day. Spend your time on the people who want to have a nice interchange, even if they're correcting you or whatever. I mean, that's better than just, hey, you suck, your mom's a whore.
Well, I haven't had that one yet, but I always try to, one of those rules: don't be a dick.
You dick.
You can find Robert on YouTube. His channel is literally under his name, Robert Fithen. Great channel.
Yeah.
Check him out. It's always worth a watch. Robert, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, well, well. How the turntables.
Well, we out of time.